Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today. Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass podcast with Jason and Chuck. Today, talking to Jason Hanson, who's former CIA and a New York Times best-selling author. So, Jason, give us a quick background. Like, tell me about yourself a little bit here.
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you the quick and dirty 30-second version. Born and raised just outside of Washington, D.C., only a few miles. So you had every government agency in your backyard and wanted to, do something, Secret Service, CIA, FBI, all that. Very first job out of college was a police officer. And then I joined the agency. And I was with the agency for several places to work. People are awesome. And then I left the agency and started my own security.
Nice. Now, what kind of, how did you get into the CIA? Like, how'd they even approach that or whatever? You just,
so that's a good question. So the myth is that everybody gets recruited. So you watch the Hollywood movies and, somebody's getting recruited. In reality, 99.99% of us apply to the agency, which is what I did. I applied like everybody else. 1% get recruited, less than 1%. And those are the guys that speak 17 languages that just beyond bright, beyond intelligent. So I was one of the 99% who applied, went through the very rigorous process, took about 12 months with the background checks, the polygraph, the psychological, the physical, the mountains of paperwork you had to fill out. I'm sure most of it's online these days. But I was one of the lucky ones who made it through the process.
Yeah, nice. No, that's because I think that's what, a lot of people are always curious about with the CIA. It's so mysterious and whatever, it's one of those things that, so you kind of had a path. Now, did you go to college beforehand or?
I did. Yeah. I went to college. So and then right after college is when I was a police officer shortly. Then I joined the CIA. So it's kind of like the agency, a bunch of the guys that had college or you had some type of military experience. That was typical. Mm-hmm. And I was one of the guys that just went to college with that experience.
Gotcha. All right. So anyway, wanted to kind of jump right into it. So what I'm wondering about is traveling abroad, right? Mm-hmm. So whenever you go to, a strange city, I know I've been to like New Orleans recently. And when I was in the military, we went to all kinds of, crazy places. Cause I was in the Navy, we, the ship kind of lands you anywhere and, be in Haifa or Barcelona, or I don't know, we've been to Poland and, Norway and different things. But when you're in a strange place, obviously you stand out, right? And even, if I go to New Orleans, I stand out, right? I mean, everybody knows, that guy's a tourist. I just kind of, you carry yourself like that. You're just kind of unfamiliar and whatever. What typical things am I looking for? Like how am I being alert? And I guess, you're being alert, but what am I looking for? What am I looking out for?
Yeah, as funny as it sounds, I'm always observing, letting all the Americans kind of be my guinea pigs to go forward. So if there's some tourist trap, whatever it may be, let's just say you get off the boat or you get off wherever, everybody's rusting that tourist trap. I'm hanging behind. I'm observing. I'm seeing, okay, where are the pickpockets standing? how are they running whatever scams they're running? I mean, you mentioned Barcelona. In Barcelona, I don't know if it still is, it used to be the pickpocket capital of the world. And, I would go, I've been at Barcelona and everything, observing, saying, okay, who are the guys who are the pockets who are going to distract where he's coming up from behind to snatch, doing all that kind of stuff. Is I'm not being the first one to run in there and kind of thing. I'm scanning the whole surrounding. And then also I'm making friends. And what I mean by that, it's some kind of shop or whatever, just go up and ask them and say, hey, listen, what are the dangerous places? Where are one of the places to avoid? That type of stuff. And most people are going to be good and honest, but I'm not just taking that one person's word for it. So I may go ask in a general area, small area, I may go ask 3 to 5 different people who I see locals and just say, hey, can you do me a favor? I'm checking out this area. Obviously I'm not from around here. What are the places I should avoid? What should I go to? And if I have those 3 to 5 people tell me the same things, well, guess what? I know that's not where I want to be. Of course, we're blessed. We do a ton of information, or we can find a ton of information on the internet. So we can do a lot of the research ahead of time. Like, hey, where's the dangerous place in New Orleans? Where's the dangerous place in wherever you're going, type of thing, and find it out. But a lot of it is a friend of mine, former CIA also. He always is common sense on steroids. And I learned true.
Right.
It's don't be an idiot. Don't walk around with, baseball cap that screams I'm an American. Don't walk around with your necklace or all that kind of stuff. So be as possible. That is what you want to do when you're out and about.
No, I like it. And I like the kind of hesitating. I think you can kind of see people who also are observing and kind of moving into position, people that are maybe a little, more nefarious, out to kind of, like you said, grab your wallet or whatever. Yeah, it's funny. I know when I went to Venice, it was, again, in the Navy, I was shocked that, it seemed like there were more Americans there than Italians. It's just, everybody's a tourist and that's just what they're there for. And it seems like such an opportunity for people with nefarious purposes to, take advantage of. And that's it. When you're, disoriented and whatever, I think it just opens up the opportunity for, people, because you're kind of distracted and uneasy as it is,
Criminals case houses and they case people. So their sites look like a great place for a home invasion because they've got no security measures showing. It looks like it's going to be the path of least resistance. And they're doing the same thing with people. They're casing when they see all those tourists, Venice, beautiful place. I love Venice. When they see all those, they're like, all right, who's going to be the easiest victim here? Who's not going to put up a fight? Who's got their head buried in their cell? Who's taking a picture, whatsoever, which of course most people are these days, which is why it's so easy, because when they're casing all those people, if you're the one person who's actually on their phone texting, you'd be like, all right, that guy's looking around. That guy would pick me up easily. I'm going to go through these 99 other knuckleheads who aren't paying attention whatsoever. So it's like, it's shooting fish in a barrel not to be a victim these days.
I hear you there. That's there's a funny meme I saw going around the internet a little while ago, and it was one of the old school drawings, like what is it, Kill or Get Killed by Applegate or whatever. One of those books has drawings like that. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but anyway, it's like Rex Applegate or something was the author, I think. But anyway, so the drawing was, it was like, oh, wait for the guy to be checking his Facebook and then come up behind him and stab him in the neck, and you're like, oh, it's like How to Take Out a Sentry or something, and that's so, typical of society today, as everybody's just like lost in their phone and completely oblivious to everything going on around them. I think that's it. I mean, it's really a big part of it is just being aware of what's going on with you right now. I can't imagine. I mean, I know the world, everybody's in their phone, but I can't imagine, spending the money to go to, Venice or wherever, Ireland, whatever excites people, and then spending my time staring at my Facebook or whatever. I can't think that's like, I understand people, oh, I want to share this. I want to show other people, like taking some pictures, but I don't care what, is going on back home when I just spent 6 months or a year saving up to make this happen,
Yeah, I mean, I'll say another thing that's big is, I was going to throw in one more quick thing, is planning. Yeah. So planning, obviously, if you're planning an intelligence operation, is much different than if you're just going for a weekend trip to New Orleans or Vegas or whatever. But still, you can do planning, especially overseas. Meaning, all right, what does this city look like? Where are the routes? Have a physical paper map, which you can buy, online. You can buy anything online before you go. So know, like, hey, if I had to get out of the city, where are the roads? Where are the choke points? Where are the one-way streets? Where's all this and that? Again, not that you're going to go in that depth, but when an intelligence officer is casing a city, because everybody cases, when it's casing a city, they're going to say, okay, I know that, hey, traffic is bad here during this time. I know that this road tunnel always backs up, all this and that. So do a mild level of planning. That way, hey, if I get in a cab and this cabbie starts going this way, well, he's taking me to murder me because my hotel's that way, which most people will just get in a cab, bury their head down and be like, that cab could be taking them to Timbuktu, and they have not a clue in the world.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, I mean, I know, again, back to the military, that's just most of my overseas experience. We'd get in a cab, I know, like in Poland or something, and you're like, oh, take us to a bar. And they'd take us to like a whorehouse or something, you'd be like, what? Like they clearly had a plan and an agenda where, being paid by somebody to take you somewhere. Right. And, these sailors, they all, whatever. And that's, I mean, definitely people are down even, depending, maybe it's not as nefarious as, as looking to kill or rob me, but still you're have a different agenda. Right. How about governments, like dealing with like local police and whatever, some places you have military walking around when you're around town, stuff like that. What should you be on the lookout for? Like, I mean, obviously every country is different, whatever, but what are some kind of standard go-tos that, you want to avoid, or what are you thinking?
All people always have both American dollars and whatever the currency is of the place you're going. Because you're going to probably have to bribe the police. I'll tell you how to bribe the police and how I've had to do it. Because, especially in Mexico, if you can bribe the police, because the vast majority of them are corrupt. But one time I was overseas, and without going into it, a few police were surrounded. And first thing is, always play the dumb American. Like if your over cop is doing a shakedown, always play the stupid American. So in my case, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, officer. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I don't know what's going on. I'm so sorry. And obviously you don't wad of money and say, how much is it going to take to pay off? You don't want to insult them, even though. So I'm so sorry. I bet there's a fine to pay. How do I pay this fine? And those are the magic words. So in my case,
how do I make it right?
Right. Yeah. How do I pay this fine? I bet there's a fine to pay for what I've done. And in my particular case, the officer said, it's $50 and you hand it to me right now. So I was, in my mind, I'm like, you idiot, I would have paid you 10 times that amount. Yeah. But I was like, oh my gosh, $50. Right. I'm so sorry. Okay, here you go. Take it. Guy took the $50 from me. I was on my way. All was well. So that's the most important thing, is you got to have something to grease their palms with. I mean, the same thing as getting a watch, go to New York, get a Rolex, one of the fake Rolexes, obviously. And you'll be in situations where something goes down and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, officer, I bet there's a fine to pay. What do I do? And you'll see the guy glancing at that watch, and it'll be very obvious he's glancing at that watch. And, you say, this watch, I don't even like it. A friend gave it to me. We're no longer, whatever story you want to make up.
Right.
Do you want this watch? And they'll say, just shake their head. Yes. Okay. Here's this watch. You'd be on their way. Probably one of the funniest stories of a friend of mine is he was in Mexico, and I tell everybody don't go to Mexico, but this friend went to Mexico. I won't travel to Mexico. There's no amount of money to get me to go.
Yeah, but this friend great.
Was there, and he was doing some of that Baja in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And so he got stopped, and he said he had this fancy, cool-looking Baja racing cap on, right, hat. And he says he goes to the police officer like, hey, is there, a fine to pay? I have $100 in my wallet. I can pay this fine. And he says the cop keeps staring at his hat. And the cop refuses the $100 bill, which doesn't happen very often, but it happened in this case.
Right.
And he says, finally, since the cop has glanced at my hat so many times, to say, would you like this hat? And he says, yes. So he hands the police officer the hat. Police officer does not take the $100, but he gets, he's able to go on his way because he gave the police officer his hat. So you never know what it's going to take to bribe, but have stuff to bribe with.
Right. No, I like that. Yeah. So I saw you had, you got a website. You wrote a bunch of books, right?
Correct.
You got a couple on there, or
yeah. I don't know if it's 12 or 13, but yeah, several.
You had these playing cards. I actually got an image for you up here. So like this, and they're survival playing cards. And I know in the Navy, and it was a little before my time, but we even had them when I was there. They had the spotter cards, and when you have playing cards where it have the different types of ships and planes that you might see while you're out on deployment. And that kind of thing. And that used to be the big thing was, they'd give out those decks of cards because the idea would be then you're a little more observant, a little more aware of what's going on. And I think that's a clever idea, to have the little tricks. So I was going through them and they all have different tricks and different stuff on there. That's awesome. But you had, some that about dealing with going overseas and, that kind of stuff. So like you had route analysis, avoiding kidnapping, stolen credit cards. Anyway, this one I wanted to touch on. You had, why to carry stolen credit cards. And I guess it's all about like a fake wallet. Tell me.
Yeah. So it's a toss wallet. So a toss wallet is, if you're going overseas, you've got your real wallet, which is hopefully tucked inside your pants in the appendix position in some kind of travel belt, right? So it's not easy to get to. If you got to pull out your passport, if you got to pull out your wallet, you're reaching inside your crotch, basically in that travel pouch. It's a hassle. That's where you keep your real stuff. But in your front pocket, you keep a toss wallet. And in this toss wallet, you can have 10 to 15 bucks. You can have some old credit cards, expired credit cards, you have whatever. But what a buddy of mine likes to do is he will get credit cards of his, call them, and say they're either lost or stolen. And then he puts them back in his toss wallet. That way, if some criminal picks it up and tries to run it, it'll be like, hey, this is a stolen credit card. So I'm not saying everybody's got to do that. But I would say is have some kind of toss wallet. If you're going overseas and you don't have a dummy wallet, because even though I'm very well trained in self-defense, of course, I want to de-escalate. I want to avoid a confrontation. And if I can hand some guy my wallet and be on my way, I'm going to do it every day of the week. Now, if I hand some guy my wallet and it doesn't solve the problem, then I have no problem going hands-on. But I would prefer can.
And I think that's another big thing is, some people are kind of always like looking for a fight. Now, one, especially in a strange place, you don't necessarily know everybody around or how that's going to play out. Two, one, you really never know the skill level of somebody. I mean, you can maybe if you're really astute at human behavior and observing people, you can kind of pick out, like you said, the guy who's better trained or the guy who's not. Right. However, by his kind of situational awareness or whatever, but you still kind of never know what you're walking into. And I feel like anytime you can de-escalate and move on without a confrontation is always going to be a plus. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, I very well trained in self-defense. I run several self-defense training programs. I've trained thousands of people in it, but you never know if the other side is going to get lucky. As I mentioned, my very first job out of college was a police officer, and it was just across the bridge across Washington, D.C. And I remember telling the area, and they said, listen, in the last 20 years, and I don't remember the exact number, but, in the last 20 years or so, we've had one officer die in the line of duty. And he said what happened is he was chasing a suspect, and the suspect had a gun and just pointed the gun behind his head and started shooting rounds as the suspect was running, and it hit the guy square in the head and killed him. I mean, it was the world's luckiest shot. Yeah, the total fluke $1 million shot. But still, it ended up killing that police officer. So you never know when somebody's going to get lucky if you have to go into a fight with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, and I guess, this kind of goes back to what you're saying about people getting lucky, is people talk about, I don't know, like you watch something like The Sopranos, right? So you have Tony Soprano's all out of shape and not somebody you'd expect, but then the kind of the brutality that people are, the different levels of brutality. So if we're talking, and I'm happy to smash my beer bottle right in your face in the middle of a conversation, it's hard to prepare and plan for that. It just, you might be able, again, to pick up subtle cues or whatever, but the bottom line, people aren't on guard 100% of the time. And if somebody does something kind of completely irrational and unexpected, it's possible to be caught off guard. And just kind of walking into something that, you don't know what you're getting into just sounds like a bad idea, when you're doing it, when it can be avoided. Obviously, certain things can't be avoided. Now, I don't know. A lot of foreign governments, I think, are suspect or maybe reluctant with American tourists. Obviously, everybody seems to like our money and like us to come over there and spend it. I know I was in Izmir, Turkey, and they just completely despised us. It was when we were bombing Kosovo and former Yugoslavia there, and they just couldn't stand Americans like, you wouldn't believe. However, at the same time, they were all about, hey, come to my shop and spend your money. I'll spit on you, but you can come take my money. And but a lot of governments are kind of suspect of Americans. I feel like the CIA maybe had a hand in that, and they're kind of on guard with. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, every government's obviously spying on every government. I say if you're traveling overseas, expect to be spied on. If you're going to a place like France, expect as an American, expect for your hotel room to be broken into while you're not there and have a listening device or have them go through your stuff. So everybody thinks, wait, France, they're an ally. If you go to a, typical American hotel, like some fancy hotel, they think everybody's a spy. All Americans are, which of course is not true. But yeah, they're going to bug your hotel rooms. They're going to check your stuff, which is why you don't want to have any important conversations in your room. You don't want to leave anything important behind. And yes, when I go places, I'm not going to leave anything behind, but I still want to see if somebody's been in my room. So, I'll do simple things like, it can be as simple as placing a pen at a certain angle on your suitcase or having the zippers be 6 inches or 7 inches from where it is. Just those teeny things, which they're not going to be able to put it back exactly. I don't care how good. Now, if, you want to go really to make sure no matter what, because surveillance will come in and take a picture of your room to try and put it back exactly before they go in, they take the picture kind of thing. But you can take a little piece of paper and put it in your door hinge and close the door on that piece of paper. You can say that, hey, that piece of paper is 8.5 inches from the hinge. Well, when they open the door and that paper falls, one, they may not notice. And if you see it falling, somebody's been in your room. But if it falls, they have no idea where it was. So they could put it back, but you're going to pay attention like, hey, I knew I put it up here. Does it fall from right here when I open the door kind of thing? So be prepared wherever you travel that somebody's going in your room, somebody's checking something. If you're going to China, you would be out of your mind to take any real electronics there. You'd be out of your mind to take a real computer or cell phone. Like you buy whatever you need, a cell phone or an iPad for going overseas to China specifically, and then you dump that thing when you get home. Same thing with a phone or whatever. So most people are just too lazy to do this type of stuff.
Right.
But you're going to get compromised. You're going to have your identity stolen, your whatever stolen. So just be careful.
That's I know, like when we were in the military, they'd kind of monitor phone calls and things like that were on base or intership and things like that. And like even as simple, and this is back a long time ago, as simple as your emails or whatever. We basically, because of the operations we were doing, you didn't have like outside internet connection. I know it's a different world, I guess now. Right. I don't know. I'm an old man, but we'd bundle up all the emails and like send them out as a packet. But I could see everybody's emails or whatever before, whatever. I'm like, And people were like, hey, you don't need to share everything. You don't need to, because it's all going to be seen. And I think everybody has something in their mind that, well, it's not, or there's too much information. They can't see it all. And I agree, maybe somebody's eyes aren't looking at everything, but you got to realize that anything can be accessible, right? And kind of being aware of that. And I think that's people's reluctance, to do things is like, well, I'm not sure, I don't know if I should, worry about that stuff. I don't want to spend an extra $100 on a burner phone or, whatever, because, so yeah. No, I'd read, there was a book, and it was a pamphlet or something, and I don't know, how accurate or where it came from, but it was like clandestine operations manual of the CIA for like Latin America or South America and stuff. And it had like ridiculous amounts of kind of, basically the whole starting an uprising kind of stuff seemed to be the theme of the whole manual, was like kind of how to basically get people motivated to do, right. Yeah. To disrupt their own government or start a riot, and kind of how to instigate it and then kind of walk away. And I feel like when people think of the CIA, that they think of things like that, and I think that puts foreign governments, a little more on guard and suspect of tourists and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the wins, we've got the people in the training. So yeah, I mean, and again, every government in the world can do the same. I mean, we know Russia, of course, is doing disinformation, all the election stuff. Russia, I mean, the Chinese have more spies in this country than anybody else. I mean, it is obscene how easily we let the Chinese in here spy, especially in universities. Like if you're, pick a university, there's probably multiple Chinese spies there. And the reason is China plays the long game. So, as Americans, we have little patience. We want, it's basically, hey, what did you do for me yesterday type of thing. Right. But China will put somebody in as a 19-year-old college student and say, yeah, we'll wait 20 years and you're working at Microsoft, or you're working for the department, or you're working for Amazon or whatever. Just, you got to be careful, because those countries, even though every country can do it, is those countries are everywhere in the U.S. trying to recruit people, trying to sabotage us, and they're playing the long game, which we're not.
Right. I'm always amazed. Our podcast ends up getting a ton of downloads in China, like all the time. There's like, it's like a ridiculously high amount. Like I would say every episode has like 40 or 50 downloads in China. And I'm like, the things we say, there's no way that your average citizen is down for, listening to what we're saying, in China. And it just, we always get a laugh out of that, because it's kind of crazy. I don't know. We bring up too many things, and I absolutely am not the guy who should be going to China, because we've said too many things that I'm sure, just things, that put you on a list,
my friend. You and me both.
That's it. That's the last place I should be visiting, Yeah. No, not bad. So now tell me about kidnapping. Like just more from the touristy kind of end of it. Like what am I worried about there, as far as like, getting in the wrong cab or coming out of a, business or that kind of thing? I looked again at your cards. There was something about, coming out of the casino is like, hey, this guy has money to throw away. Clearly, he might be a good target for that kind of thing. And I know I've even been like, I went to San Antonio, and they're like, oh, we're just grabbing people and getting kidnapped all the time. It kind of made me reluctant to move there or whatever. But what would you be looking for? What are you doing to try and avoid that situation?
Remember two things that mom and dad always told us. One, don't go to bad places. And two, nothing good happens after midnight. So don't go to bad places. Don't go to places where, don't go to strip joints. Don't go to the bar and get completely hammered. Go to the casino, and if you win $50,000, awesome. But don't flat world and let everybody know you made $50,000. So stay out of places where the worlds are going to be. And then, of course, going back to nothing good happens after midnight, at 3:00 in the morning, the criminals operate in dark. Intelligence officers operate in dark. Intelligence, you can do things that people don't see. That's the same thing that criminals do, right? So I am, when I, going or whatever, where should I not be? Where do I need to be? What time do I need to be in? And then it also, I keep saying making friends, meaning talk to the people of the hotel because they know things. They know, and it doesn't look very good if, hey, I stayed at the Holiday Inn and got murdered and kidnapped. They want to keep type of thing. Right. So intelligence officers are very good at making friends, networking, having people fall in love with them so they'll come out and give them intel. So get intel and talk to people, and they'll share with you a lot of, never go to this grocery store after midnight or whatever silly thing it might be.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. That's it. I think the locals definitely have a better, handle on what's going on. And I think that's why, I find, traveling concerning. It's always something where at least you need to be on a higher guard, Absolutely. A little more aware and whatever. Again, looking at your cards, and it's funny, I'd kind of heard and learned the same thing over the years. I had worked with people, we were dealing with a lot of sex trafficking stuff when I was younger, and going and recovering people. And we did a lot of training beforehand on using foreign weapons. And when I was reading your cards, I saw, you talked about, owning an AK-47 and things like that, and just being familiar with whatever, it was described to me as, battlefield finds kind of thing. You're maybe not, especially when we were going into foreign countries, you're not bringing weapons in there. I mean, maybe at your level, they're bringing weapons in there, but I know at the operations that I was dealing with, we weren't bringing weapons in there. So with that, it was, oh, look, these old Berettas, 1 million people, in other countries are using them. And it's not something your average American is really familiar with anymore. Maybe a 60-year-old, but, your average American's not playing with the old school Berettas that used to be everywhere in the 80s or whatever. And, now I have, I carry like a H&K, and, everybody's got their different, thing they like, right? Every American supposedly loves Glocks, right? That's the answer. I saw you had a video on that, but and I think for the same reason,
guy. So
yeah, I was originally hooked on SIG, but I got to say I carry a VP9 SK, and I think that's the greatest thing.
Great guns too.
It really. I always tell people you need to find what you're going to carry. So one, if you're concealing it or whatever, you need to find something that's going to work with how you dress, how you are, the size of your hand, how you hold it, the gun that's right for you. And, somebody who's 6'4" and, 300 pounds is going to probably have a different gun than a guy who's 130 and, and 5'5", that's, it's going to work different for one hand or the other. And you just kind of feel what's comfortable and right for you. Obviously you want something reliable. It's not going to jam, whatever meets the criteria. But once you hit a certain level, it's finding the right thing. So anyway, battlefield finds, tell me about that. Maybe if you were working for the government, how does somebody go about maybe protecting themselves or finding ways to do that in a foreign, unknown place? What are you thinking?
I'll give you a few answers there. I mean, one is you want to use the guns because you're talking about working for the government. You want to use the guns that the locals use. So I own a lot of AR-15s. I love the AR-15. That's the rifle that I shoot the vast majority of the time. But like I said, I have AKs because you have to know the enemy's gun. And overseas, you don't want to walk around with an AR-15 in because clearly Americans. So whatever weapon of choice was there. But as far as if you had to get guns, I mean, there's black markets everywhere in the world, and you can get guns anywhere you. And I'll tell you, as I said earlier, stay out of bad places. if for some reason, I'm talking some crisis scenario, you needed to get a gun, you would go to the bad places I just told you to avoid. So one of the best places overseas is go to tattoo parlors. Go to tattoo parlors and looking for this, and they'll know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. To be very careful. There's a very in-depth thing about, that it would take me 10 years to explain. Be careful that they're not going to rob you. They're not going to dump you. They're not going to take your money. Looking for bad things overseas, which hopefully you shouldn't be, tattoo parlors.
Right. All right. Good to know. Secret of the pros right there. No, exactly. That's the thing. I mean, just different stuff, right? Obviously, nobody's looking for trouble. We just did an episode on, covert entry, and we were talking about, scanning cards and different things like that. Right. And, lock picking and things like that. There's not, but I think we're definitely not in any way encouraging bad behavior. But on the flip side, if you're aware of how the world works and what people are doing, I feel like you can do such a better job protecting yourself and protecting your family. And,
agreed.
And honestly, I mean, being knowledgeable and capable is a big thing. And people seem to, like you had mentioned earlier, want to keep their head in the sand and avoid, any kind of reality because it's uncomfortable. I don't know. So basically, where can anybody find out more about you? They want to check out your book. They want to get some of these playing cards, learn some of the tips and tricks from a spy, all kinds of cool stuff. Where are they going? And where's your YouTube? And what are they finding out more here?
Yeah, you can just go to spybriefinggear.com. If you go to spybriefinggear.com, they can see all the books, they can see the playing card. The YouTube, I put a ton of information there on all various topics. And just go to YouTube and do Jason Hanson plus CIA, and you can easily find my YouTube channel.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I'll try and get it in the show notes here for both the podcast and in the YouTube and all that. Give me a day or so to get it worked out. And definitely happy to share it, because that's awesome. No, I appreciate you taking the time and, giving me a little insight, a little knowledge, stuff I haven't heard before. And I like that. I always get excited about having somebody where I don't want to waste my time. I want to have a takeaway, even if it's like a fiction audio book or whatever. Mm-hmm. I want to come away like, hey, I never thought of that. Even if it's a new way of thinking, a new philosophy, a new something, I like having a takeaway, and no, I appreciate it. You definitely bring that to the table. So I appreciate it. Anyway, the rest of you guys, if you like and subscribe, really helps out the channel, and I appreciate your time. So thanks. Have a great one.
Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today. Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.